Here's some minutes going back to the year 2000, where Junior, whoever that is, whoever recorded these minutes, Junior reported that he had been contacted to say that Jim Heta has started to build his garage. He had also sought an injunction from the court, but because of timing, had been unsuccessful. Auntie Mary said she objected strongly to Jim building, and that Bob had spoken to Jim about his rights to build. Richard asked whether the planned meeting had happened between Junior and Bob and Jim. No, it had not. Richard expressed the view that we need to treat all illegal dwellers the same and not be seen to pick on Jim. We have inherited this problem, but it needs to be sorted once and for all, and any decision we make would need to encompass all other illegal dwellers now and into the future. To do this, we need to hurry up with our management plan so that people are aware of what is required for them to become legal dwellers. Papa said that as a trust, we need to get our act together. We cannot evict people because they do not meet our criteria, where we do not have a set criteria as yet. We need to get our act together. The trust is not functioning properly. We need to drop the number of trustees so that we can get a quorum. Now, you could argue that and say, need we have a workable group who are prepared to do the work and turn up at meetings? Maybe you just have to elect the right people, appoint the right people. Anyway, the following motion was made that we grant temporary licenses to occupy to all illegal dwellers, and no more will be issued until the completion of our management plan, which still hasn't happened.
It's fucking dodgy.
On the 26th of March 2004, an injunction was granted against all the trustees of the Hauai Ahu Whenua Trust. On the 6th of November 2005, there was a meeting held at Te Rāpiti Marae, at which the Constitution was referred to. There was discussion about the voting, and the question came to elect new committee members. Victoria Heta voiced that she would be prepared to take on the position with Awhi in her mahi as secretary. Discussion was held among the trustees, and B. Thompson recommended that the position required was that of a minutes secretary. Further discussion over the page talks about the need for clear policy. Richard Whitihira presented the meeting a box containing trust documents which he'd received in the post from the Maori Land Court, pertaining to the financial business of the trust. Vicky Heta was to send minutes of the meeting held 6th of November to the Maori Land Court, which presents a problem when you look at these other minutes from November. We'll just go to them in a minute. And P. Sigley wrote a letter of approval from the trust for Bella to collect any documents or information pertaining to the Hauai Trust from the Maori Land Court. So then we got under financial policy, signatories for the chequebook. Victoria Heta, the new minutes secretary, has authorised herself to sign cheques according to these minutes. But, unfortunately, these minutes are referred to in the minutes of the 3rd of September 2006, where we talk about
Signatories.
the minutes be amended, and they should read as Pania Sigley, T. Hall or B. Thompson are authorised to sign the cheques. And then we have the subject of the Ngaitawaki monies. Victoria Heta gives a report on the Ngaitawaki monies, a verbal report by the sound of it. And there was a unanimous decision that the report be accepted and that monies of $10,000 to Ngaitawaki be written off. So here are the trustees who made that unanimous decision to write off $10,000. We're going back to the minutes of the 4th of March 2006. We can see here that there was clearly note made here in the minutes of, again, of an occupation order, an application for an occupation order by Jim Heta. And this refers to actions that have been taken by the court and the new trustees. This is after the injunction. Minutes on the Ngaitawaki grant, AGM May 1995. So all this, money going unaccounted for years. Here we got the minutes of the 3rd of September 2006, where Victoria sends out a pānui to all the major shareholders. I'm not sure who gets to decide who's a major shareholder and who should or shouldn't get the pānui, but surely it should go to all the shareholders. We've got the financial reports of the 29th of September 2006, a special meeting. The term deposit, the 09 account's now up for renewal as of 22nd of September. The current funds of $5,500 roughly. As the current bank balance in the operating cheque account is $493, funds are required in order to cover the wānanga costs for the weekend of 30th of September 2006. Therefore, it's proposed that the term deposit 09 not be reinvested and all funds transferred to the operating cheque account. Then we've got the minutes of the annual general meeting held on the September the 5th, 2010. Well, this is rather a confusing document here because it says note, not a true and accurate account of AGM minutes. Matters set out in no particular order. Anyway, under current status of Hauai lands turned back into 3 original blocks. That's been under discussion for a while. License to occupy, some form of written correspondence of acknowledgement from Hauai Trust for issuing licenses to occupy to whānau shareholders and their beneficiaries, Uncle Jimmy Boy Heta. So once again, we have the discussion about the issuing of a license to occupy. And then there's the usual discussion about all the money that's been written off and disappeared, embezzled. Then we come to the minutes of the 11th of February 2012, where there were names omitted from the present list. Anyway, then it goes on, what is the new process within the Maori Land Court that is referred to in the minutes in relation to the 2004 injunction? The beneficiaries and shareholders re-elected the same trustees who had been stood down by the court. We just need to stop there and clarify that it wasn't all the beneficiaries and shareholders who re-elected them. It was a small group of them. Yes. Because if you have a closer look at these minutes, many of them show that there were only 3 people in attendance at Hui's who made really important decisions. That's not a quorum. A quorum is 5. But coming back to this document, they elected the same trustees who had been stood down by the court. The court had not just stood down, but there was a permanent injunction granted in 2004 by the Maori Land Court against all of the 9 trustees. The court did not oppose their nominations because it was the wish of the people at that time, and their wishes override the courts. I think that needs challenging in the courts. Trustees need to understand the role of a trustee. They must be squeaky clean. Absolutely, they must. And they need to be accountable to the people, and this didn't happen in this case. Chairperson's report states that the loans or grants were to be followed up, and what has happened is there were undertakings by some borrowers, including Matu, who owed the trust $10,000, that he would repay the money. Has this happened? Bella stated that at a Hauai meeting it was decided that they'd be written off, like the Ngaitawaki monies were written off. There's lots of people who are not happy with the housing plan that Robert has produced. The people have not had a say in it. Move to the housing report. Glennis apologised for not having a written report to present to the meeting, so a verbal overview of the past 2 years was given. Right. The housing plan may not have been widely accepted, however it is not because we have no other option but to accept it, but more that it is only an option and people need to take the time to look it over and add their thoughts and have input, but it's up to those who disagree to come forward and help implement better plans. We are trying our very best in our roles in a way that is conducive to everyone, says Glennis. Then we come to the financial report. Both Glennis and Bella apologised to the meeting that we did not have any accounts to present. Wow. Then the Reverend Ben Tihara questioned the status of the Hauai 28 Whenua, because as recently as 2006, Patsy King, one of the trustees, is telling the Maori Land Court that it's a reservation. But it's not. So here Ben says, when the Crown had the land, it was known as a public reserve. When it came back to us, the process of having it reverted back to Maori Reserve was not done. And the council, therefore, their records still show that it's a public reserve. Robert assures that this is just a process and it's still under Maori Reserve. Ben disagrees and would like to see the paperwork and legislation that states that. So Then Ben points out the mathematics of working out the amount of shareholders and the amount of land will not equate to everyone being catered for. Then we can come down here about Trell, Te Rāpiti Enterprises Limited, the commercial arm of the Hauai Trust. Robert reported on this, and Hauai owns 50% of Trell, and Robert is no longer employed by them, but is keeping an eye on it. They've had a tax issue, and the accounts are getting done. He will see what he can access by way of information for feedback to the next Hauai Hui. There was lots of concerns expressed about Trell. Surprise, surprise. The way the workers have been treated, the wages not being paid, PAYE tax not being paid on the workers' behalf, and workers' personal safety. Glenys is a director on Trell on behalf of Hauai, but has not been to a single meeting. She's unaware of any meetings. Titari explained that he resigned as a director on behalf of Hauai, as he was made aware of a $135,000 tax bill for unpaid GST and PAYE, which he was going to be liable for, which he did not want jeopardising him and his whānau integrity. Other concerns about the ongoing problems and bad management were expressed, and that we should sell our shares in Trell. Robert felt that, conversely, Hauai could buy others out. It was moved that Glenys contact other directors of Trell to attend an urgent meeting with the Hauai Trust shareholders and beneficiaries and present their annual reports and audited accounts. After discussing why the shop failed, the shop and pie here that Trell was running, which imploded spectacularly and lost a lot of money, we came to a discussion on the fire brigade. Where Arana Refa was the star of the show, being the representative on the fire service. But Uncle Ben was, he talked about getting a licence to occupy an 800 square metre site on the flat. And then Uncle Ben, Chihara, raised the fact there was no, he's concerned that there was no audit trail put to the Maryland court when they applied for their licence, explaining why they were asked to leave their previous site at Kaimarama, which may have had a different outcome to their licence. The Trust first and foremost has responsibilities to its beneficiaries and shareholders. So the reason they got asked to leave Kaimarama apparently was because of all the drinking and the violence that was going on at the Rāpiti Fire Brigade under the leadership of Rana Refa. Rana Refa was booted out of his role as Chief Fire Officer with the Rāpiti Fire Brigade after attention was drawn to the fact that that organisation was struck off the charities register some years ago for failing to provide financial reports. And the documents are available on the Charities Commission website, and you can see there's a couple of letters from Rana and Victoria explaining why there's no financial reports year after year after year. That just continued. Then in the minutes on the 14th of January 2012, we've got here correspondence from the council indicate that Hauai 2D8 is non-rateable, and rates information has been sent to the Bay of Islands Maritime and Historic Park Board at 119 Rāpiti Road. It also states that the whole block has been classified as recreational reserve and therefore is non-rateable. There you go. Minutes of the 26th of May 2012. Glenys again explained that the current housing plan that the Trust is working to does not allow for houses to be built on the 2D8 block. Yes, but I don't think she's explained why or shown us a copy of that plan. And that's what we've been seeking for a long time. And over the page here, it records that Bella Heta queried whether she needs to apply for a licence to occupy as part of their current situation. Louise explained that each bipartite deed will be different. In Uncle Jim's case, because it is acknowledged that their whānau can remain where they currently are for Uncle Jim's lifetime, this will need to be put into our agreement with them, but unnecessary for it to be a part of anyone else's deed. Well, actually, I think the answer to Auntie Bella's question was yes. I think you need to apply for a licence to occupy. More discussion about the fire brigade. It was stated they'd be granted 800 square metres in the Hauai block. The new fire truck that was to come to Rāpiti has been lost to another brigade. And there was also some confusion whether funding had been lost also. Apparently the Marae trustees have been approached as to whether they would consider allowing the fire station to be built there, so it becomes more community involved, and the majority of them have agreed. Yeah, because nobody else wanted it near them because of the drinking culture. Rana informed the meeting he was tabling his resignation as of today, as he is getting tired and worn down with the demands of his time, effort and own finances and resources to uphold the fire brigade in Te Rāpiti. So Louise felt there's been some confusion over things that were rolled out with the fire brigade, and the current trustees, who were also elected at the same AGM, did not sign off the agreement with the fire brigade and were not aware that it existed. The Maryland Court did not give consent. The previous trust gave consent without the knowledge of the newly elected trustees. All the Maryland Court can do is add it to the Hauai Trust notes as a notation. If the trust want to revoke it, it has every right to. The newly elected trustees are now carrying and having to oversee the decisions made by others, not only with the fire brigade but other issues. Two issues been raised in the past is that neighbours do not agree, and the erection of the building will knock out a house site from the plan. On the 14th of January 2012, we talked about here, there was some disagreement and contention regarding the circumstances and verbal agreements made with the Heta whānau. Sam Anania explained that the blue sleep out is on skids. It's not permanent, can be removed at any time, although his whānau will be putting in an application for a licence to occupy. And that's what the Heta whānau said too. With respect to all the whānau who've been dwelling on the land illegally for many years, we must work with them and come up with some options that they can work with, as the criteria they will need to meet in order to get their licences to occupy may not be possible. Therefore, alternative ways for them to remain in their homes must be sought. The Trust will meet with all of those who are living on the land without licences to occupy to kōrero kanuhi ki te kanuhi in order to bring some resolve. And this is exactly what the Trust should have done. They should have advertised a pānui, put out a pānui to hold a hui at the marae with all of the occupiers on the Hauai Whenua whose licences to occupy have expired or alleged to have expired. This says that the Trust needs to start a process forward for dealing with whānau who are living on the land without a licence to occupy, those whānau being the Heta whānau down on the flat, the Anania whānau down on the flat. And at the AGM in 2014, it was recorded under matters arising, there were nil, although there was lots of discussion regarding past loans, grants, investments. It was agreed that in future any funds used by the Trust for these purposes must come back to the shareholders, beneficiaries, and any of these past transactions are now put to rest. We don't have an attendance list for this meeting once again.
Okay.
And then it says here, Hauai Investments received over 55k to set up the shop and pie here, and then a further loan advance of 25k was granted as it wasn't making any money, and the trustees at that time gave one more lifeline to the company. However, it doesn't say how much that was. However, within the first year, the shop was shut down. Shop income for the year it operated was under 6k. There was still approximately 5 to 8k worth of goods and equipment that we are trying to sell off. Bad management attributed to the shop's demise. And that's the common refrain among Rāpiti governance. Some felt that as a result of the shop operating in Paihia, everyone now knows who Te Rāpiti is, and a huge part of getting compensation for the land was about economic development. Others believed that the only recognition Te Rāpiti got from the shop was that we failed, and economic development is very low priority as far as the trust order shows. The number one priority on the trust order is to meet the housing needs of the shareholders and their blood descendants.